What's good, guys? CJ here, and welcome back to another DNA video. Today we're going to be reacting to a video titled Duet Night Abyss is a good game that constantly shoots itself in the foot. So I want to see what this video is about. You guys actually sent me this video to react to, and I got some food, so we're going to be reacting while I get my grub in. So let's go ahead and see what the homie has to say.
Duet Night Abyss is a game I was excited for before I played it because I heard the game was anime Warframe. Then when the beta test for it dropped and I played it, I was disappointed at how much it took from Warframe without carving its own path and having reasons for me to love it as its own game. Not to mention with it coming with the same bog standard problems a lot of gachas have due to the monetization method. Then the game finally dropped and I don't fully know how to explain my thoughts on it in one sentence. But in the course of playing the game, I grew to like aspects of it, which just made me frustrated at the aspects I saw that were glaring flaws which have not been addressed ever since the beta I played.
Okay.
So if I were to give my current thoughts on the game, I wouldn't say I hate it, I wouldn't say I love it, I'd just say it has a lot of wasted potential.
That is true. That's something I often say on stream. I wouldn't call it wasted potential, because wasted means that they can't actually move forward from it and use things to, take advantage of said potential. I feel that the game is right now in what I like to describe like what feels like a beta, right? I know it's global launch, it's full launch, but considering the game had to go through such a massive overhaul where it was literally a gacha game with banners and everything, and now it's something very different, completely different. The game is at a spot where I feel that they have implemented all these features, but none of them are solidified and completely cooked. They gotta like fix some of these things, some of these features, rework some of them, which they said they will, to really carve its own path, to really differentiate itself from a gacha or a Warframe type of game. Because right now, while it is not a gacha type game, this is not like a WoW or a Genshin, and it's also not a Warframe, clone, it needs to do more to fully differentiate itself. And I don't see a problem with it taking inspiration from like Warframe, because Warframe is an amazing game, one of the best games ever, especially in its like monetization and all of that aspect. But it needs to do a little bit more than just being like an anime Warframe to really stand out. And I don't see it as wasted potential, because I feel that if they capitalize on some of these features that the game has, and the whole anime and the Warframe style, the gacha style, all of these different styles that they got implemented into this game, the game could do really good. But they got to start cooking, and they got to start moving quick.
But with some changes, it can realize that potential.
Yes.
And the rest of this video is me explaining why. But
Okay.
I do wish to clarify that when it comes to my criticisms, they do not and should not matter for your enjoyment of the game. If you love this game and love playing it, then that's all that matters. I'm not out
Absolutely.
here to criticize a game and say it's terrible and people shouldn't play it, because I do think there is something to enjoy, which is why I care enough to make this video. I'd actually encourage people to try out this game if they haven't, but I still want to see the end product improve, because they've done improvements in the past, like removing the gacha system. I'm gonna keep it 100. I know there's probably not a more ironic place to hear this from than a guy who plays a lot of gacha games, but I hate gambling. I've made a couple of videos on this now, but I do really believe that the monetization method of gacha games actively hurt the games they're a part of. There's a ton of reasons why, like how it influences power creep, story, game design, content, but if we're just looking at the bare bones of the argument, I'm playing a game.
Gacha, I agree, they do hurt the games that they're a part of, but you know what gacha games don't hurt? The developers' pockets.
I want to play with all the characters. I do think overall it's a net negative, but it is a necessary evil because it's a way to make these games free and support a live service model for them to get constant updates. Without it, we need some other method like DLC or subscription services to keep the games running, which I could see working for some, maybe, but not a lot of people would actually like it, which is why I like DNA's approach of being monetized from just a skin gacha. I think it's a breath of fresh air and makes the game an actual, well, game. Because
Yeah, you know what would be great though, since they're monetizing it from a skin, cosmetics aspect, if they actually gave us some good cosmetics, some more cosmetics, any cosmetics at this point.
when I talk about a gacha game, there's some preconceived notions about how it's generally gonna be, but viewing DNA as that, I think would be missing the mark, because what it's trying to be is anime Warframe, so I want to review it and focus on it from that lens. This is also me warning, I'm going to make a lot of Warframe comparisons, because I've played a fair bit of Warframe. Which, yes, I know, the gacha player plays real games, who would have thought? But Duet Night Abyss tries to be Warframe to a bit
Did he just show 200 hours or 2,000 hours?
Comparisons, because I've played a fair bit of Warframe. Which, yes, I know, the gacha player plays real games. Who would have thought? But Duet Night Abyss tries.
Not even gonna lie, in like Warframe standards, that's literally like nothing.
To be Warframe to a bit of an excessive extent. And there always comes up the argument of plagiarism versus inspiration, but dear God, some of this shit is a little too much. Some of the missions are ripped basically one-to-one. Yeah. Excavation. You go in, find excavators, defeat enemies to get power, power it, it excavates. Yeah. Exact same on Warframe. Yeah. Capture. You go to the marked enemy, kill it, capture it. The animation even looks similar. Escort. You find a prisoner, escort it out of the area. Exploration. You defeat enemies to get serum, and when you get maxed out, you're done. Like survival missions on Warframe, but you don't have to wait 5 minutes till it's over.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of the missions in this game are literally one-to-one from Warframe, but at the same time, I feel like they do have their changes to them. They're almost like 90% one-to-one to Warframe, but then they have little things that change just a little bit in each mission. And I do think, okay, sure, they took that idea, that inspiration from Warframe. But at this point, I don't see that as a bad thing. Warframe is an amazing game that's carved its own niche, its own community over there in its corner. And if another game comes out from like the anime trope, like anime Warframe, and wants to take inspiration and like literally do these same type of missions with a little bit of changes to them, I don't see that as a problem. I think, if anything, it speaks volumes of how good Warframe is as a game.
Relocation. You stay on a payload and move it to a different spot, which I know sounds incredibly generic, but in Warframe they have the payload constantly drain your shield, and DNA decided to rip that one for one, which honestly I don't know why, because everyone hates hijack. And some of y'all may be thinking that this can just be coincidences, like, for example, defense and exterminate aren't groundbreaking things to see in games, so the similarities there can be found in a lot of other games. But the movement of DNA was taken from Warframe, like bullet jumping, something that only exists because of a bug in Warframe. It's put one-to-one in this game. Other movement stuff is copied too, like aim gliding, but you can't even do it like it's done in Warframe and just aim down sights, because you're constantly shooting when you press aim. The Demon Wedge system is a mod system from Warframe. The hacking looks pretty similar too. There's a character that looks just like Mesa, with her ability being pretty much the damn same. The end mission reward screen, the system to get character drops or weapons, is almost bar for bar the Void Relic system from Warframe, just streamlined to be easier. These within isolation don't really look bad, but when it all piles up, it's very questionable. To where I'd even go so far as to say, Warframe doesn't feel like an inspiration to the game, it feels like a template to copy. Kinda like how Belobog was used for a template of the starting area of the game. And I mean, hell, on that topic, there's also the runes they've come from Genshin too. But I don't know why the game couldn't have aimed for the grind of Warframe and then carved out its own path. I don't see why most of the missions needed to be ripped from Warframe, including hijack. No one likes it. We could have just done better by this not being in the game. However, here's the thing. I'm pretty sure all of what I'm saying is already well known. If you've heard of this game for a while, you know it's trying to be anime Warframe. Now, to how much they're trying to be, that is a different story, but what I just said, anime Warframe, is enough of a reason for this game to exist.
Yeah, I feel like we just went through like a whole minute of like where it sounds like being like Warframe is a bad thing, whether they're actually inspired or used Warframe as a blueprint. If anything, I think that's good, because Warframe is a good game. They're not out here using fucking some doo-doo ass game as a blueprint. They're using a blueprint of a game that's very good, that has a very successful niche of players that love its game, that has been running on for like 37.5 years, and progressively and actively gets better with time. Warframe has been very crusty at one point of its lifespan, to now when you look at a trailer and you show like a player that saw Warframe 5, 6, 7 years ago, and you show them a trailer of Warframe, they think they're looking into the future because it looks so good. So using Warframe as a literal blueprint to some of its game modes, some of its structures, I don't see any problem with that whatsoever. And like he just said, and like we all know, there is nothing wrong with anime Warframe, right?
Probably a chunk of people who have heard of Warframe like the idea of the game it is, but have found it hard to get into because the techno and future aesthetic of it don't appeal to them. Maybe you don't fuck with Goss having exhaust vents all over his frame as he constantly moves like a ketamine addict. Maybe you instead want to play as a lady in a nun outfit. Okay, I forgot Warframe did that recently.
Ooh, she
Maybe
looks
you want to
good.
play as a red lady with gigantic horns, amongst
Yeah.
other gigantic things. So this game is a perfect in-between. But that is where my criticisms on the game come front and center, and a lot of them boil down to the
Okay.
fact that it feels like they copied Warframe without understanding why those systems work in Warframe, or, in a lot of cases, without adding on to those systems to make them better. And that is what I would have loved to see them do. For example, a system I think they improved on would be the relic system. It's much simpler where you get currency
Yeah.
from different activities and buy the relic you want. From there,
This is the second player that I've seen make content that they've said they've played Warframe, or like they have played Warframe, that does flat out say the letter system is better than the relic system in Warframe. I think they're both great systems, honestly. Like, very good. Allows you to farm what you want, however you want.
it's like Warframe. You accept one of the missions that's available and run that as you pop open your relic, and that is that. Simple as. Buy, run, pop. But in Warframe, the system can be a lot more annoying. To get the relic, it's a random chance based on the mission you're clearing or packs you're opening from syndicates. From there, when you get it, to increase your chance at getting the rare drop, you can spend void traces, which you get at the end of relic missions. And you only get one drop compared to DNA's 3. What's meant to make the system less annoying is player trading, where you can trade what you got in a relic you might think is worthless for something you really like.
They gotta add player trading to this game. Maybe not now, maybe in about a year if the game's still around. Hopefully it is. But player trading would be a gigantic step in the right direction. And I know some about to say, yo, they just copied off Warframe too. Well, yeah, because it's a good-ass system. This is a system that should be implemented in, like, a whole bunch of games.
But since DNA doesn't have trading, if they copied this system one-to-one, it'd feel like a piece of shit. Without player trading, this system feels terrible, so copying it would have been a bad idea, which
I could be wrong, but Warframe, you guys told me Warframe didn't have player trading on day one, right? It took them a little bit of time to add trading. I could be wrong, but I don't think the system feels like a piece of shit right now in DNA, because even if they added player trading, there's not that much to trade. They got to add more content to trade to make the system even be worthwhile. For now, I feel it's more of like that starting phase where we're building up our roster, our inventory, and eventually when trade gets added, it would be a lot more fun and a lot more valuable than just the same, basic 20 things being traded across the market.
is why they improved on it. It's an example of taking a system from another game, and instead of forcing it into yours, you change it to mold around the direction of your game. But unfortunately, there's a lot of examples of them taking systems from Warframe and jamming it into Duet Night Abyss and hoping they stick. The biggest one being the trial level system. It's a gate that stops you from being able to unlock certain characters or weapons until you get the EXP to level up your rank to what the game is asking for it to be. This is a copy of the mastery system in Warframe. They don't really lock off characters, but they lock off weapons, so you pretty much need to increase that level. But
So, while yes, it's literally identical to the Warframe system, this is not unique to just Warframe. Many other games would require you to get to a certain level to craft gear, to unlock certain blueprints, to unlock certain areas, to wield certain gear or weapons, to enter certain dungeons. So gating certain content behind having to get to a certain level on your account or your character is not like unique to Warframe. The way they implemented it, I will say it's unique, and it's pretty much the way Warframe does it, but the whole being a certain level to get certain perks or certain additions is not unique to Warframe.
Duet Night Abyss takes it a step further and locks character level and more efficient farming stages behind trial rank, treating it like more of a gacha player level system. So it feels like you need to go even further into the trial rank system to make your grind efficient. Now, how do you raise it? It's like Warframe. Level characters, level weapons, clear story, and get genie mons. The genie mons are different and from what I've been hearing are apparently the fastest way to level trial rank, but
Absolutely not. The genie mons are by no means, I would say the genie mons are probably the least beneficial to leveling up your trial rank. The fastest way to level up your trial rank is simple. Get everything done, like quest, main story, side quest, then get characters and get weapons, which you can for free, and just level them up. You don't got to work on like the character skills, nothing like that. You just level up the characters. Genie mons do give you trial rank experience, but it's like minimal. You can get to like 60, 62, 63, whatever, without leveling up any genie mons whatsoever.
Let's focus on one of the biggest EXP pools for trial rank, getting and leveling weapons. In Duet Abyss, when you get a weapon blueprint and its parts, you can then forge it. However, you will need to get some more materials, and two materials that feels like damn near every weapon in this game requires are gold sand and repulsive crystals.
Yup.
Deadass, I'm pretty sure every weapon blueprint requires these.
Yeah.
And the way to make them is with enemy drops, which are whatever, to be honest. And the other material is Luno Memento, these little coins.
Yeah.
Now, how do you farm them? There's only one way. Defense missions. That's it. If you want to make...
You can also farm them through Chase, right? Which is a mission that if you have homies, it's more in the end game, right? You get together, you can get globules, you can get Luno Memento, and you can get cash from it, and it takes you about 5 minutes. You go through certain stages, kill some elites, kill or protect a chest at the end, and boom, you get those. Is it the best way to farm them? No. But it's definitely not the only way by doing this particular scenario.
Any weapon in the game, you need to farm defense missions. And you do want to make these weapons so you can get trial EXP and max out your character, get demon wedges, get weapons, so you can have a build.
Yes.
This is what I mean when I say DNA takes aspects of Warframe and just throws it into their game. Because even though I don't really like the mastery system in Warframe, deadass, the game is significantly better when you hit mastery rank 14, which is why the second I hit that, I stopped giving a fuck about that system. But at least in Warframe, there's so many different ways.
I haven't played Warframe in 6 years, and I think I'm mastery rank 20-something.
To make weapons that will increase your rank, to the point where you rarely feel pigeonholed into doing just one specific activity, or at the very least, you don't have only one activity you need to grind out and just that whenever you want to make a weapon. The mastery system is very grindy, but it makes up for it with giving the players a wealth of options to achieve the goal of increasing it. If we're focusing on just weapons, you can run extraction missions to get some cryotic to make a weapon that needs it. You can run relics and trade what you get to Barrow to buy the weapons he's got.
Yes.
And you could do up the lit shit. Granted, it's more preferable to decapitate yourself with a dull, rusty saw, but if you want to get their weapons, you can do that. But
now question, guys. Now question. All of these things that he just mentioned and all of these different ways to acquire, you know, weapons and, you know, materials for said items, were they here at the very launch of the game? And now I'm not saying that because DNA just launched, we should compare it to like day one Warframe, right? But I feel that we also shouldn't compare it to endgame Warframe, right? I feel that we should look at Warframe and be like, okay, it has all of these good things, but then launching a game, thinking that you're going to launch a game nowadays like Duet Night Abyss with all of the quality of life, all of the content, all of the variety of activities that Warframe has in a brand new game is kind of crazy, because Warframe has packed 15 years, I don't know how many, a shitload of years of quality of life improvements, content, activities, like a lot of shit is packed into the game. So it like thinking that Duet Night Abyss would release with all of that and all of those options just jammed into it is kind of insane. I'm not gonna lie, that's kind of crazy. So when you look at the game, I don't think it's fair to compare it to like the current state of Warframe with 15 years worth of content. But I guess we shouldn't also compare it to day one, because the devs had time to look at what Warframe has done and maybe improve upon it, right? Or at least base some of its better quality of life features to it, which I'm sure they will. But also saying that, you know, you have all these many different ways in Warframe to acquire things, it's not a fair comparison in my opinion, right? It makes sense, right, that we should have all those features, but I feel that asking for all of those features right off the bat is a lot of content for a developer to drop into a game in one shot, because I mean Warframe didn't do it. And not only that, but Duet Night Abyss was a game that was a completely different thing a few months before its official release. And with that said, I feel that with that short amount of time, what they took from Warframe and how they were able to implement it was implemented pretty well. Does it need improvements and all of that? 100%. But the comparison is not fair in that regard. You know what I mean?
DNA just copied the mastery system without really adding anything to it, except for the genie mons, but you know, let's be real, that's not really much of anything. And for a big part of it, weapons, since they decided to make all of them require one material that you can really only get in one mission type, it really hurts player freedom. I'd say it ended up being a net negative for the game to have just copied the mastery system without changing too much, but they can easily fix it by making it so you can get coins from a bunch of different missions rather than just defenses.
So I will agree on this particular regard of what he just said, that you should be able to passively get Luna Memento coins, globules from like enemies in general. I feel that if you want to go farm, let's say like excavation for coins, and you do like 20 minutes of excavation, by the time you're done with the mission, you should be able to look at your globules or like your rewards and have a little bit of globules there, a little bit of Luna coins. Obviously not anywhere near as good as targeted missions. If you want to farm globules, you go do the globules mission. If you want to farm Luna Memento, you go do defense or whatever. But I feel that these resources should be things that you can acquire from just killing enemies, so it doesn't feel as tedious to farm some of these materials. And maybe you could have some scenarios that drop specific materials that you can only find in those stages, but those could be more specific items, like for example skill level up materials. They should be farming like a dungeon or a raid type of thing that you can only get those there, right? Instead of the stupid weekly missions for skill materials. But other than that, resources, you should be able to get them from a variety of enemies, not just one or maybe two missions. I agree on that.
But then come in the other problems the game has, like most of the missions being a one-to-one without any improvement, and it builds up to where my disappointment for the game is. It's that if this game was done in a better way, or honestly just a bit of a different way, it would be a two-cake situation, where you got another product to enjoy if you're a fan of these types of games. Think Bloodborne and Rise of P, Overwatch and Marvel Rivals, fucking Arknights and Path to Nowhere. That's what I would want this game to be. Now, of course, with it releasing after Warframe's had more than a decade of improvements means it's not going to be up to the level Warframe's currently at.
Yep.
So the problem I have is not that it's a smaller cake than Warframe, it's that it's the same flavor. Like, imagine Warframe is a big-ass wedding cake that's vanilla flavor. There's so many different layers, everyone loves it, they know it's going to be high quality and a banger. If you want something to chew on, that's going to be an easy, tried and true food. But then DNA is a cake placed right next to it, like a small 10-inch cake, that is also just vanilla flavor. Why would I care about that cake? Like, if it was...
Because they're not the same, right? If we're comparing the two games for being the same, and also I don't think it's fair to say why would I play Duet Not Abyss if there is Warframe when they're different, right? If you're looking for an anime style game like this video said at the very beginning, where you can play a girl with big horns and big old titties, right? In the anime style, you would play this game, right? If you want to play a more spaced, ninjas, futuristic type of game, you would play Warframe, or you could just play them both. Now, I would understand if they were literally identical, one-to-one type of games, where like if one looked like Genshin, one looked like Uwa, they were both open world, very, very, very similar art styles, very similar a lot of things, then you'd be like, yeah, why would I play that one, right? When I have this one that's better. But they're different. They're actively different. Just using the example he said himself at the very beginning of the video, it's not the same. If you're going to compare having a giant, vanilla cake and then a small vanilla cake, both identical, the same exact cakes, that's not the case with Warframe and Duet Not Abyss. Nor do I think we should have a scenario where like a Warframe player is like, oh, why would I play Duet Not Abyss when I have Warframe? Or why would I play Warframe when I have Duet Not Abyss? Very different games. People can enjoy both of them for the very different things that they offer. And I don't think it's fair to put a game that's as good, as developed, as polished as Warframe next to something that's just starting out and expect them to compare to each other. They're not going to compare to each other in any regard. So yes, if I went to a wedding and they had a giant, beautiful looking cake and then a doo-doo-ass basic cake, I would pick the brand fancy looking cake that's big as hell. But that's not a fair comparison, nor a comparison that specifically needs to be made in this particular regard.
The strawberry cake, that'd be different. Maybe a cheesecake, Black Forest, chocolate cake, something to make it really different from the wedding cake. But it's not. It's for the most part just the same flavor, but tinier. Because they use Warframe as something to copy instead of a foundation to build on, for the most part. Because here's the thing, this cake has two things going for it that help it gain its own identity. One being the anime aesthetic, which I already talked about, and the other being the story. But before
that alone right there, the anime aesthetic would make it so if you go there and there are two cakes, there would no longer be two vanilla cakes. One would be the vanilla cake and the other one would be the chocolate cake, right? That alone is a big enough distinction between both games to call two different audiences to them, right? That alone is a very, very, very clear distinction. Nowhere near the same.
Before going into that, I got something to say, that this video is sponsored by Tower of Fantasy, which, little question about this, right? I wanted to know if y'all have ever heard of a gacha game that decided to completely remove its gacha system after 3 years from its release, because that
Tower of Fantasy, yeah, hold on, let's go here.
I mean, the protagonist doesn't even appear in it, and I thought it was good, though not anything insane. But part 3 actually locked the fuck in. I'm gonna go into spoilers as I explain why it's good, so skip to here if you don't want to be spoiled. So the setting of the first area of the game, Belobog, is a pretty bog standard one. There's the Empire, which is the force that rules over the city, and the Osa rule over the Charons. They're a race of people who can use demonic powers, and because of this, the Empire treats them, well, about as well as you can expect.
Yeah.
Long story short, they're heavily racist.
So good right
but
there.
what Charons can do is join the Empire and help in their
need
wars.
her in the
if you
game,
climb
chat.
high enough, you become a Laurel Charon, and they're hopefully not as racist towards you. But then we follow the story of Rhythm and what happened to her brother. See, he was very gifted, and because of that, he joined a squad that rarely takes anyone in. But in between us learning about her brother, they're also trying to solve a case of murders that have happened recently, done by this fellow in a suit of armor. But as the plot progresses, their base is found out and we go to stop them. Rhythm looks to deal a killing blow, but they're prohibited to chase them down and see their body for confirmation. And this makes Rhythm really question the Empire and if they're doing well. I mean, the reason the murders were never looked into is because it was happening against Charons. The Empire really only stepped in when some Solarians in the Empire were killed. And then there's also the fact that the killer wasn't acting alone, so why aren't they going after their companion that they never even fought? So she decides to break away from the army and investigate this on her own, and shortly afterwards, they end up meeting the murderer. Turns out he didn't die, and also, turns out it's her brother that went away. And he describes why he looks this way, because he isn't wearing armor. That is what his body was turned into. As the reality of being a Lord Charon in the army isn't being treated as a regular soldier, in some cases, because he was instead used as an experimentation subject. They want to further the power he has from being a Charon and turn him into an obedient monster that will fight for the Empire.
I'm not even gonna lie, the story in this game is very, very different to like the stories we've been getting with games like Wuthering Waves or like Genshin. It starts off slow, and I understand why a lot of people thought it wasn't good, but damn does it develop into like a very interesting, dark, and like mysterious story the deeper you keep going into it. Very, very good.
And I just fucking recognized that this world building is almost dead-ass Attack on Titans. Just to replace the Charons with Eldians and the Empire with Marlians, though except for the Titan power killing them in 13 years, they can instead die and turn into monsters from the Charon power. You got Laurel Charons being honorary Marlians. No wonder the game has fucking pass in it. Bro, Purgatory Island might as well be Paradise. I'm not gonna lie, it's actually concerning the amount of parallels I can draw between DNA's world building and Attack on Titans. It's not one for one like how the stages are ripped from Warframes, but the similarities mixed with the cases of plagiarism we've seen don't give me much hope. We've copied...
I feel like we're picking at things, bro, that are good inspiration and branding them as a bad thing, right? If one game does something that's really good, or a story does something that's really good, there is nothing wrong from taking inspiration from it. Now, if it was absolutely one-to-one, you could see it as a problem, but even then, right, even then in this particular scenario, I don't see it as that big of a problem. Now, if this was like they were copying Pikachu one for one, if they were copying Naruto one for one, like literally Naruto and Naruto, then it would be a problem. But copying a mission type that works, copying a business model that works, I don't see that as a problem, right? And if the story, as he said, is something similar to Attack on Titan, from what he's seeing in the world building, last I check, Attack on Titan is one of the best stories in anime, according to a lot of people. Some people might think it's trash, some people think it's great, some people think it's the greatest of all time. So I don't even think that's a problem either.
Warframe stages, Belobog from Honkai Star Rail, the Abyss from Genshin, that one's a freebie though, and then possibly the world building from Attack on Titan. Like,
okay, so basically from that statement, every single aspect of Duet and Abyss is copied from another game, right? It's copied, just flat out copied. Guys, can y'all name, and y'all probably can, but can y'all name current games that don't have something you can relate to something else? Whether it's direct inspiration, whether it's just an idea that's similar to it, or anything? Bro, Where Winds Meets just dropped. Is that not just like a Wuxia game? Is that not getting comparisons to like Elden Ring or Sekiro? Very similar to it in combat art style. Nowadays, you ain't gonna sit here and tell me that you're gonna make a game where every single mechanic, every single character, every single idea, every single story, every single everything is just unique. There's nothing that you can think about that's closer. There's always going to be comparison, just like how every single game is just a copy of Genshin Impact, right? We're all going to be able to draw those comparisons, but I feel that being able to pick the good from these things and bring it into your own game, and obviously, you know, add more to them, which DNA has done and hopefully continues to do because we still got time. Some things are still a little undercooked. We've established this multiple times in the video, but being pointed out as like, it's bad because it has the tower system from Genshin Impact. It's bad because it copies these missions from Warframe. This copies this from this. This is, I feel that at that point, it feels more like a good, opinionated, constructive opinion about the game to just looking for things that make the game bad. And the story in Attack on Titan that is similar to it is not a bad story. The grinding stages, right? Defense, survival, escort, all of that. They're not bad mechanics in a game like Warframe. It's core mechanics to a certain degree. And a thing like the tower mode in a game like Genshin Impact or a game like Wuthering Waves, it's not the worst either. It allows you to test new characters, challenge yourself as you go along, and it's a decent endgame mode, especially in these anime-esque type games. So, you know,
I want to give the benefit of the doubt, but I'm finding it really hard to. It's way too similar, especially because in the lore, Karens used to be in power before everyone got fed up with them and went against them. It just feels like the Great Titan War, bro. I don't know. I'm not saying the story of the game is a ripoff from AOT, especially because it goes off in its own way, but I am saying the world building is probably heavily inspired from it because it's seeming way too similar. If it was just this on its own, I wouldn't think too much of it, but with how the game is found with taking one-to-ones from other games, it really makes me think the world building was the same case as the gameplay. But I'll put those thoughts to the side for now and continue with talking about the story with how I planned. So the plot progresses and it's revealed that Rhythm's brother, Blues, actually died by that gunshot, and the person who said they were Blues was the other person he escaped containment with, who's acting like her brother so she would not know that she was the one who killed him. And to help cover the tracks of their involvement in protecting them,
yeah, exactly. And that's another thing that we also got to talk about. It's not like any of these ideas were one-to-one unique from them. Like, it's not like Attack on Titan was the first ever anime they had a similar plot line like AOT has, right? It's not like Warframe was the first ever game of its kind to think of like a defense mission or a survival mission, right? Do they work a very specific way according to their game? Yes. But it's because certain models, as time goes on, prove to be good. That's the thing. And we're not denying that it's very similar to Warframe, but we're like, we can't discount that as a bad thing. We can't say, well, it's similar to Warframe and that sucks. No, because Warframe is great, right?
Fantasio fights the Empire on his own to the death, so the truth of what happens never gets revealed. And this is a segment I really like because the twists were well written, but more importantly, Fantasio is a playable character, and they killed him off. In fact, he isn't the only one. Psyche is too, and they also killed her. Granted, they allude to bringing Psyche back from the dead, but that's mainly done because she's based off the Greek Psyche and mythology. But the reason I like the game being fine with killing off its playable characters is because it shows the difference it not being a gacha brings up. Because a lot of them are really scared to take that step with their characters. Not to say it can't be done, because there are some notable examples, but in the vast majority of times, we all know the story ain't gonna pull the trigger. If a character is playable, that means they more than likely won't be killed, because they have to sell the player on the character, and it's a little hard to do that when they're canonically 6 feet under. It's also part of the reason why these games are scared to make playable characters assholes or largely pieces of shit to the player. Because if the game is focused purely on selling, the character needs to be agreeable enough to rake in a lot of bread. But they're not trying to sell you on the character. They're trying to make you invested in the game, then have fashion, which is the end game of most multiplayer games, be what keeps them afloat. Now, end of the day, that is another strength of them having gotten rid of the gacha, but I like it because it's a personal strength of the game. It's what it can play to. I just really wish they play into these unique strengths more often, because the biggest criticism I have for the game is not that it copies stuff from other games, it's that it does it without integrating what they are copying well enough to fit the game as well as it can.
So that's the thing with this game, bro, right? It was, and like, I could see where he's coming from, right? We ain't gonna say that, yes, some of the things that are integrated into the game are not fully integrated very well, right? But once again, we're looking at a game that was basically another gacha game, another run-of-the-mill, get in, summon for your character, summon for their weapon, and then you're good to go. And if it would have been that, this game would have been dead in the first week, right? It might not be pulling the greatest numbers, but the thing is that right now we can look at the game and say it has potential. The game completely changed its mechanics, the way acquisition of characters and weapons work, which is the entire business model that it revolved around. They didn't change a 50-50. They didn't change fucking how you get currency in the game. They changed the entire business model of how the game was gonna make its money. The entire core of the game was changed within some months before the game's release. And even with that in mind, I think the game has done a good job implementing what it's implemented in that time. If this game had been always announced as this type of game and it came out the way it did, I would have said, yeah, the game is raw. It needs cooking time. It needs to be put in the oven for a little bit longer. But since we take all of those things we already know into account, I say the game is great. It has tons of potential, and with the little time and the complete flip of the switch that they did for the monetization of the game, I think they've done great. Now, from here on out is where things start to get, dicey. Will they do things to improve the game? Will, now that we have the model, now that we know what the business model and their monetization formula is, will they capitalize on it? Will they actually move forward and make the right moves? Will they improve upon the farming? Will they improve upon the cosmetics? Will they improve upon character, weapon building, and all of that? Will they add all of these features that are still missing in the game? Now that the business model is established is where we look forward and we can make an educated video saying, did they cook? Did they fumble or what? But judging it as a game that was completely different than what it is now, and judging it like if it was never that or it didn't go through those changes is a little bit harsh, because that's just not the place the game is right now. Do we expect more? Yes, we want more from the game, but that's where the unrealized potential of the game lies, where it has the room to grow, right? I understand where he's coming from, where he says some of these things, but I do feel the game has a lot of room to improve, and what they've done so far in such a short time has been great. Bro, let me ask y'all a question, chat. Let me ask y'all a question. How many gacha games have y'all seen recently, right, that have refused to do something as simple as change a 50-50 or change the amount of pulls it takes to get a character? Not even taking off the 50-50, just refusing to change the amounts of pulls it takes to get a character, even after community backlash. How many games have died because the developers have refused to make minor changes to the game that would have, pleased their community? A ton of them. I can think of a couple right now. Black Beacon never listened to her player base, never treated their player base right, never did the changes people asked for. Stella Sora, for some reason, they actually made getting characters more expensive. They didn't want to even risk doing that, right? In here, you have a game that was a gacha game. There was banners in the game. I remember some of the betas summoning for characters. I've seen people summon for characters. And they flipped the script on that. They took off the gacha system. You understand how much money they left on the table, bro? Let me put it to you like this. Had this game released as a gacha game, it would have made more money in the first week of the game being out than it's probably going to make in the entire first 4, 5, 6 months of this game being out. It would have made more money on the launch week of the game than it's going to make in the first several months of the game if it would have released the gacha. And the developer said, you know what? We'll take that hit. Let's cook. I think that alone deserves praise, and it deserves the benefit of the doubt. Not here to glaze the game. If another game comes out and is better, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to be out there playing it. But the reality of it is that we got to give them the benefit of the doubt, because they took that step that a lot of your favorite gacha game developers don't have the balls to do. Tell any of your gacha game developers, yo, so it takes us 80 summons to get to pity. Why don't you lower it to 70? You just slap their mother. You'll get banned. You'll get banned from the game for even, suggesting they do that. These guys did something that no other dev has done for a long time. Until recently, because now the trend is that a lot of people are taking the gacha off their game, but it has a lot of potential.
Or without making it better. Because I believe the game is good. I think it has potential.
Yeah.
I've played bad games. I'd say this one isn't close to being
What
shit.
the hell is even
but
this?
the laziness with which they approach design aspects of this game really makes me scratch my head.
Homie has like 15 different characters, and then Naruto's, what the fuck is this? Aqua.
Like, it feels a bit at odds, because when I think of games that rip shit off, I think of ones that cut corners in any way they can. Like a shit ton of the rip-off games I've played that really only give the bare minimum.
God damn, what the fuck?
For what they need to function. And if the game was that, there would be some aspects that are ripped away, like the animations wouldn't be as good, the story, aside from the world building, because I'm really questioning that, would be shit. Hell, some of the really nice looking segments in the story would have been confined to just basic animations, or possibly white text on a black screen. But the game hasn't cut corners where I'd really expect it to if it was fully lazy, which makes the design choices that are ripoffs make even less sense to me. Now, I'm not going to repeat the ones I've already brought up, but a big problem of the game is that it's not really difficult. So the game's a hack and slash like Warframe, where the enemies are largely there just for you to montage. It's not really a fair fight. They're a grunt, you're a space god, but Warframe is able to have difficulty by making the mission objective hard, or, and this is mainly where it is, making the enemies much stronger. And it's done by increasing their stats, which at first glance sounds like artificial difficulty, because all you're doing to make the enemies harder is just multiplying the numbers that are already there. But what Warframe does to make this interesting for the player is that it enables the player to make their build more optimized and use that to counteract what the enemy is doing. And there's such a...
Okay, there are several things I want to say to this. I want to say several things to this, right? So, Warframe was very, very fucking easy. At one point, like, you would just do your build, and for most of the content, obviously, it was still easy. You would just blitz through everything. But yes, Warframe does reward your building and you making a stronger frame and weapons and all that by progressively scaling the content to get harder. Like, if you're doing a survival mission, it gets harder. And while the same thing happens in Duet Night Abyss to a certain degree, the reality of it is that in Duet Night Abyss, even if the content does get harder with every level or every stage that you go, like when you're doing a survival mission or whatever, they reset their rewards. So you don't even want to be there longer, right? Like, if you do floor 1, 2, and 3 of a excavation mission, and then floor 4 goes back to being the same price as floor 1, but the enemies are stronger, why would I stay for floor 4 if I can just restart and do floor 1, 2, and 3, which is easier and gives me more rewards than just starting over on 4. So it doesn't incentivize you to really need to push further beyond. You know what I'm saying? So I agree with him on this particular aspect. I've always said myself that I feel that they should definitely motivate you to want to push higher waves. I saw a video this morning. I got it sent to me. Somebody wanted me to react to it. I'm like, how the fuck am I going to react to this? Some dude, some YouTuber made a video where they went up to wave 99 in, it's not extraction. It was, not excavation. One of the modes. They went up to the clue farming stage. What's the clue farming stage, chat? Where we always go to farm clues. Long story short, he went up to wave 99 of that stage. It took him about an hour and a half, give or take, almost 2 hours. And he got less clues than if he would have done 30, 40, 50 minutes of just going up to wave 5, up to wave 10. So he went up to wave 99 for almost 2 hours, and he got less rewards than if he would have done like 30 to 40 minutes of just going up to wave 10 over and over and over and over again, right? So it doesn't really incentivize you to do that. There you go, exploration. That's what I'm saying. And I wish that if someone was out here going up to wave 99, they would come out there and be like, holy shit, this dude just did an hour and a half, 2 hours of this freaking grind, and he got a ridiculous amount of rewards because he toughed it out, he fought some hard enemies, blah, 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 blah. But the game doesn't motivate you to do that. So I give it to him on that.
Wealth of systems in the game to where you aren't really pigeonholed into going for one strategy that all frames in the game must do. Like, for example, the build I mainly use, it's Coral Whipclaw, incredibly basic. I go around, use this fucking Whipclaw, it does a shit ton of damage, but to stay alive, I make it so my shield is incredibly small, and when the enemies break it, I get a bit of invulnerability. Then I have a mod which gives me a bit of shield on ability cast, which I'm always doing because Whipclaw costs nothing, to where the...
Okay, so this is one thing that I really, really hope. I really hope that developers implement, and you guys have heard me talking about demon wedges all the time because y'all know I love games, bro. I love Warframe. Even though I haven't played it in 6 years, I've always thought Warframe is one of the best games ever made. It's fucking amazing. And this is the one thing that when we talk about demon wedges, chat, this is what I'm referring to. Demon wedges that work like this. Currently, our demon wedges, for the most part, we have some interesting demon wedges. We do. We have some demon wedges where it's like if you hit a target or something and you kill them a certain amount of times or whatever, it'll give you buffs, but blah, 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 blah. But I want more buffs like this that work with characters, where if you do certain things, certain interaction happens, and those are the demon wedges that would ideally make builds interesting, unique, fun, diverse, because right now everybody goes for the same type of build, just skill damage or skill duration or skill range, and while that's still the goal, that's still what you want to do, I feel that being able to add mods that work like
I
this,
have a mod which gives me a bit of
like this, is so dope, bro. It gives you diversity, and that's what I want to see added into the game, right? This type of diverse type of demon wedge, 100% on that.
shield on ability cast, which I'm always doing because Wolfclaw costs nothing, to where the shield is always being built back and it makes it really hard to die. Then I get energy easily from a different frame's ability, I helmet into Korra. But then there's Araxia, for example, to where she can go invisible for fucking ever and stay alive that way. In this level of depth,
Bro, when you look at this, you cannot tell me that's Warframe. It is Warframe, but you cannot tell me that looks like Warframe. That's the thing I love about Warframe. They just be going crazy. They be going and doing things down their own way, things that look completely different. If you showed this little gameplay right here to someone that heard about Warframe or saw Warframe 5 years ago, they'll tell you, what the fuck, this ain't Warframe.
is something that is currently missing from
Look at
Duet
these
9
buildings.
Abyss, in part
Look at
because the
this.
game hasn't
You know
really
what I
had time
mean?
to build its mod system and unit
So
complexity,
dope.
but also because the characters only have 2 abilities.
Yes.
It slashes the amount of depth the characters can have.
Absolutely agreed. I do think that characters need to have at least a 3rd ability, because 2 abilities is too basic. And considering that most characters have 1 offensive ability and then the other ability for the most part is like a buff, I feel that it really simplifies a character's kit. I think 3 abilities would be great. Maybe add an ability slot or something where you can add in an extra. I don't know how y'all would do it. I'm not gonna lie. Y'all are the devs. Y'all cook that up. But 2 abilities really brings down the option to customize, because in Warframe, I'd remember, you'd have characters, just throwing things out there like Ash, right, where you could go crazy and build into like his skill. I believe it was like shurikens or some shit that you would throw. This was back in the day, so I'm sure you Ash mains nowadays will probably cringe at my examples, but back in the day you can build into like his skill where he would throw like shurikens or some shit and just demolish shit with him. Then you could also build into his ultimate and have a completely different build that would work differently because it would now be straight up into its ultimate. Whereas nowadays, when it comes to Duet 9 Abyss, you're kind of just building most characters to their 1 ability, because the other ability usually buffs and they just synchronize very linear. So I do think that characters need a little bit more build diversity. I do think that.
Because if they try to do Warframe's route of enemies that become so overpowered you need to have a great build to fight against them, I think a lot of units would be limited by their kits having half of the abilities. They copied Warframe's combat system, mission, and general gameplay, but decided that the units would only have 2 skills instead of 4, which overall lowers the depth an individual unit can have.
I think 4 skills might be a little bit too much, but I do think 3 skills is good. And first off, don't we talked about this yesterday on stream, and someone brought up, well, you have your partners. Yeah, you're not controlling your partners. You're not, that doesn't add to your per se fun, to your build optimization of your own character, of how you play your unit. To a certain degree, they're just there to buff you for the most part, right? That's about it, right? And neither does your Genimon. Your Genimon has a passive skill where every single Genimon you just, and then it just gives you a buff. That's it. They don't have some crazy Genimons that are out here like freezing the target and like, I don't know, grouping them all up in a vortex that lasts, 5 seconds. It's very similar. It doesn't translate into an ability per se, just a buff once again.
I can maybe see the game cooking in its own way with this would be the companion system in the game, where you can have 2 other AI units with you that are characters you've built. So ideally, you could have builds that incorporate multiple characters and have a lot of synergy there.
Yes.
That would be a big way they can change from the Warframe system. As in that, if you choose solo, you're largely alone, but if hard content is going to be built around synergy with your companions and stages, then I worry about multiplayer where you won't have that synergy and everyone's just doing their own thing. If they make characters simpler to promote team building as a big focus on the game, then it makes multiplayer harder because you aren't guaranteed to have team building.
Yeah.
Unless they go fully into role selecting, which, I mean, it'd be different, so I'm interested in that, because end of the day, I really just want the game to do its own thing. Like, take the framework of Warframe, but make it anime, improve on that shit, own it. But just don't take a shit ton of stuff from it one-to-one. Like, do the missions really need to be taken from Warframe? Did we need to copy the mastery system from Warframe without giving the player an entire star chart to explore as they chip away at it? And why do
I don't think none of those things are a bad thing that they copied off Warframe at all.
we have to turn the mastery system into basically a player-level gacha system? Why did bullet jumping and aim gliding have to be copied without adding on some other movement tech to it?
Okay, look, let's be honest, they didn't copy bullet jumping, and they did it without adding anything to it. They did add something to the bullet jumping and the movement from Warframe. You know what they added? More friction and less freedom, because the movement in this game is kind of shit compared to Warframe movement. It's still better than a lot of other games of its anime aesthetic type, right? Like, if I go back to Wuthering Waves, I'm over there trying to like fucking move. I will say climbing in Wuthering Waves is better, but whenever you try to slide in this game, whenever you try to bullet jump, wherever you try to run and then bullet jump, you kind of like lose momentum. So they did add something to it. More restrictions.
Considering the bullet jumping now is like watching a newborn baby try to do it. I'm personally fine with games that take heavy.
Another thing though, like if we look back at it, or am I mistaken, did Warframe drop with bullet jumping and its movement being as smooth as it is now when it first ever dropped? Once again, it's not like we're comparing that to DNA, right? DNA should have dropped it as smooth as Warframe 100%, but just a curious thought.
Be inspiration from other games, because the opposite of that is something I hate, like the Nemesis system from Shadow of War being patented so no one could use it, followed shortly by Warner Bros. Doing fucking nothing with that patent and just letting it die. Innovation is a core part of games. So many take aspects from others and just do it better, and that pushes games as a medium forward, which is why I would love for DNA to have taken shit from Warframe and just done it better, innovate on it. But for most stuff,
they have done some things that might not have been like way better, but they have been smooth, right? Like the letter system to get characters. Some people might argue it's better than Warframe. Some people might argue it's not better than Warframe. But what we can agree is that it's pretty good. It's pretty good. The letter system to get characters is really good. And if someone wants to say, well, you got to farm letters in this very boring way right now, that's besides the point. We're talking about just straight up the letters to get characters. That system is pretty damn good.
They really haven't. Now, thankfully, they still can. Improvements can be made. They could make more stages, change their coins so you can farm out more of them how you want to. Make the movement better by adding more stuff, or hell, actually just give momentum to the bullet dash so it doesn't feel like a pitiful fart in the wind.
Please.
And that's why I say the game has potential, but how they've copied without really adding on to the product makes me feel like in most aspects, it's just a worse Warframe, when it could have been a lot more.
It's not a worse Warframe, it's a different game, bro. Let's be honest. Just like we're not going to say Destiny is a worse Warframe. Anthem is a worse Warframe. They're just separate games, right? They try to do things similar to Destiny or Warframe, but they couldn't be in those lines, right? They're different games. Just like DNA, it's a different game, right? It does take a heavy inspiration. We can indeed say it is anime Warframe to a certain degree, but it's not Warframe. It's its own type of thing, right? Like if you were to say, I don't know, Warzone, Call of Duty Warzone is just Fortnite but realistic, right? Very different things, same genres, very similar, but on their own type of line.
More. And this is where I hope criticism towards the game
no, Anthem is just a bad Anthem.
Could improve these aspects. Now, part of the reason why the game launched in this state is, from what I've heard, because the higher-ups wanted the game out quick, so not a lot of time was available to work on feedback they got from the beta tests. And yeah, the rush is kind of obvious at times. Like watching this cutscene where this area blows up, but if you look past the rubble, it's completely fine. Or keeping both takes the voice actor did for this line.
The weather in Hyperborea today. The weather in Hyperborea today.
The building in this scene being actually just 2D. The lip syncing being, I assume broken, or the
Yeah.
game sometimes not closing when I Alt F4 it, you can see
Yeah.
where the rushing is. But I hope that with the game getting its established base of players, which is pretty damn big, they can start improving it and letting this game flourish. Though
Yeah.
I won't lie, hearing the higher ups wanted the game to release in a bit of a buggy state really worries me, because unfortunately, game devs need to answer to what the suits say. So
Yeah,
at
the suits. That's the one thing I be saying, chat. The suits are what really worry me about this game, bro. The game has so much potential. Where the fuck did we just go? The game has so much potential, bro. The game has so much potential. But the reality of it is that if the suits don't allow that potential to be realized, we're kind of cooked, chat. So hopefully the suits see the potential and see that the game can be a cash cow later down the line as improvements get added into the game. But for now, that's pretty much everything this video is yapping about. I will say there are good things about this video that I agree with. There are other things that I don't really see as a negative. There are points that are very valid. There are some that I think are reaching a little bit. One thing I gotta say is that I personally value creators putting out their points of view out there, whether they're right or wrong, as long as they're not being extremely toxic towards a particular thing, as long as they're, breaking down some things with some realism to it and some valid critiques and opinions. At the end of the day, it is what it is. I think it was a good video, right? Despite my difference of opinions on certain topics, I think it was a good video. I'll have the link to this video in the description of my video. If you've enjoyed it, do be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, turn on bell notifications, and let me know what you think about Duet Night Abyss and its future. For now, thank you for watching, and peace.